The globe, and the heliocentric model of the solar system. What a truly amazing accomplishment of man. It took the collective efforts of some of the greatest minds of all time, over 2,000 years, to invent this model. It was a reverse-engineered masterpiece. Every objection to the model always met with just another cleverly disguised reverse-engineered explanation. For example, the lacking stellar parallax was rationalized by the stars being trillions upon trillions of miles away. A bunch of zeros were added to the end of their numbers to explain away what any common sense would refute. What these men did was invent a dual system of astronomy, a second model of the universe that can explain everything we observe, a model built on perfected mathematics that have no actual relevance to the truth. As George Orwell once wrote in his prophetic book, 1984, "What are the stars?" said O'Brien indifferently. "They are bits of fire a few kilometers away. We could reach them if we wanted to, or we could blot them out. The Earth is the center of the universe. The sun and the stars go round it." When we navigate the ocean, or when we predict an eclipse, we often find it convenient to assume that the Earth goes round the sun, and that the stars are millions upon millions of kilometers away. But what of it? Do you suppose it is beyond us to produce a dual system of astronomy? The stars can be near or distant, according as we need them. Do you suppose our mathematicians are unequal to that? Have you forgotten doublethink? These men invented a dual system of astronomy, and these men marveled at their accomplishments. Finally, we shall place the sun himself at the center of the universe. The globe, heliocentrism, the Big Bang Theory, evolution, all pseudoscientific lies taught to us as fact, and we are taught lie after lie after lie. They need to keep us completely ignorant and uninformed, and for the exact same reason that they didn't educate the slaves. An uneducated slave was much easier to control than an educated one, and slavery still exists today. It has just evolved beyond the ball and chain. Instead of forced labor, we are allowed to have the illusion of education, and we are allowed to choose our own profession. This illusion of freedom and this illusion of choice makes us more productive. The more productive we are, the more taxes we can pay. We are all just small cogs in a massive machine. We are their slaves. We are their debt slaves. So like any slave, why would they ever tell us the truth? Knowledge is power, and he who holds the knowledge holds the power. They pretended to give us educations, but all it was a watered-down curriculum designed to prevent your mind from reaching its true potential. All it was government indoctrination, and people gobbled up lie after lie. All these lies serve one master agenda, and that's to remove God from creation. Their answer for a randomly created, godless universe was the Big Bang Theory, which requires spherical-shaped stars and planets formed through gravity to even be plausible. It doesn't work if the Earth is flat. How could they go about creating a theory of how a flat Earth, with all the heavenly bodies revolving around it, could be randomly created without the intelligence of a supreme being? They cannot. A flat, geocentric Earth proves creation, and this is a huge problem for the people who possess the power here on Earth. And here's what it all boils down to. No one can serve two masters. Either you will hate one or love the other. No one can serve both God and money. No one can serve both God and greed. The Bible clearly describes a flat and stationary earth with boundaries, a beginning and an end, as all things have. So if the earth were flat, it would prove God's word, and Satan is constantly telling us the opposite of what God's word tells us. All of Satan's lies blind us from the truth and lead us further away from God. They work hard to try to hide God from us because no one can serve two masters. They want money to be your master. They need you to be a debt slave to their grand monetary Ponzi scheme because it is you, the common worker, that keeps this matrix alive and functioning. If people knew 100% that God is real, that there truly is an afterlife, and that this physical state we are in is only a tiny blip on the radar, they would stop showing up to their dead-end jobs working for slave wages, and they would stop being debt slaves to the bankers who rule over us, and people would choose to serve God instead of money. the entire system would collapse. These carefully manufactured lies all serve one agenda, and that is to hide God, so that we will continue to serve them and their debt-based money system and not God, because no one can serve two masters. Quotes from the men who shaped the world. It is the mark of an educated mind to be able to entertain a thought without accepting it. Aristotle. Education is what remains after one has forgotten what one has learned in school. Albert Einstein. Therefore, I would not have it unknown to your holiness that the only thing which induced me to look for another way of reckoning the movements of the heavenly bodies was that I knew that mathematicians by no means agree in their investigation thereof. Nicholas Copernicus. This most beautiful system of the sun, planets, and comets could only proceed from the counsel and dominion of an intelligent and powerful being. Sir Isaac Newton. Two things are infinite: the universe and human stupidity. And I'm not sure about the universe. Albert Einstein. So far as hypotheses are concerned, let no one expect anything certain from astronomy which cannot furnish it, lest he accept as the truth ideas conceived for another purpose, and depart from this study a greater fool than when he entered it. Nicholas Copernicus. Today's scientists have substituted mathematics for experiments, and they wander off through equation after equation, and eventually build a structure which has no relation to reality. Nikola Tesla. If the facts don't fit the theory, change the facts. Albert Einstein. There are more sure marks of authenticity in the Bible than in any profane history whatsoever. Sir Isaac Newton. Science without religion is lame. Religion without science is blind. Albert Einstein. Finally, we shall place the sun himself at the center of the universe. Nicholas Copernicus. What are the stars? Said O'Brien indifferently. They are bits of fire a few kilometers away. We could reach them if we wanted to, or we could blot them out. The Earth is the center of the universe. The sun and the stars go around it. For certain purposes, of course, that is not true. When we navigate the ocean, or when we predict an eclipse, we often find it convenient to assume that the Earth goes around the sun, and that the stars are millions upon millions of kilometers away. But what of it? Do you suppose it is beyond us to produce a dual system of astronomy? The stars can be near or distant, according as we need them. Do you suppose our mathematicians are unequal to that? Have you forgotten double-think? George Orwell, 1984. With the heliocentric model, if the Earth spun 360 degrees every 24 hours, that day and night would gradually shift and flip every 6 months as the Earth gets to the other side of the sun. Noon would become nighttime and midnight would become daytime. This is a fact. And the experts don't deny that this phenomenon would happen if the Earth spun 360 degrees every 24 hours. But what they claim is that the Earth spins 361 degrees every 24 hours. And that the Earth only spins 360 degrees in 23 hours, 56 minutes, and 4 seconds. This extra 1 degree of spin every day makes up for the roughly 1 degree of orbit, keeping noon facing the sun at all times, preventing the day-night switch that I explained in my last video from happening. Now, this official explanation makes sense, and the logic is all sound, but there's still one gaping hole with this model, and that's the fact that Polaris never moves. Polaris is located over the North Pole every single day of the year, which means the North Pole points to Polaris in December, and the North Pole points to Polaris in June. Every day of the year, the North Pole will point to Polaris. And the major problem with this is the North Pole in June and the North Pole in December are separated by roughly 186 million miles, as they are on opposite sides of the sun. So if the Earth is tilted 23.5 degrees in December, and the Earth is tilted 23.5 degrees in June, and these two poles are separated by 186 million miles, how do they both point to the same star? This is essentially claiming that the North Pole in June, the North Pole in December, and Polaris form a triangle. But triangles can't have two parallel lines. Their explanation for a lack of a stellar parallax with Polaris is that Polaris is really far away. In fact, Polaris is over 2.55 quadrillion miles away. It's so far away that there's absolutely no detectable parallax between the Earth in June and the Earth in December, which is separated by 186 million miles. Everything with this model has been reverse engineered from the truth. The ultimate goal from the beginning was to place the sun at the center of the universe. They want the sun at the center, as they are sun worshippers. Heliocentrism is simply modern-day sun worship masquerading as a science. So their goal from the beginning was to put the sun at the center. So how do you do this? Well, the first thing you have to do is you have to make the sun much larger than the Earth. For the Earth to orbit the sun's going to have to be much larger than the Earth. So they made the sun over 1 million times larger than the Earth. But when I stand on Earth and I look at the sun, it looks no bigger than a quarter. So if the sun is over 1 million times larger than the Earth, how come I observe it no bigger than a quarter? So how do you explain this? Oh, well, that's because the sun is really far away. So since we had to make the sun really big to place the sun at the center, now we have to make the sun really far away. So let's make the sun 93 million miles away. But now we've dug ourselves into a deep hole, because now we've made the diameter of the Earth's orbit around the sun roughly 186 million miles wide. And Polaris never moves. The North Pole in June is separated from the North Pole in December by roughly 186 million miles, and yet both poles point to Polaris. So how do we account for this? Oh, well, we're just going to have to make Polaris really far away to account for the fact that we see no observable parallax from June to December. So the only way to rationalize away this is to make Polaris over 2.55 quadrillion miles away. But I ask you, if Polaris is over 2.55 quadrillion miles away, how come I can see it? Oh, well, that's because Polaris is really freaking big. Polaris is 46 times the size of the sun, and the sun is over 1 million times the size of the Earth. Every explanation has to be reverse engineered, because they started with an ultimate goal of placing the sun at the center. Every other fact that they create is reverse engineered to make this work. It's just like George Orwell said in his book 1984. The stars can be near or distant according as we need them. Do you think it's beyond our mathematicians to create a dual system of astronomy? This is exactly what happened in reality. All these men that we learned about who created the heliocentric model, they had to work collectively over the span of 2,000 years to reverse engineer this model. This model comes from man. This model is built on perfected mathematics that has no relation to reality, no relation to the truth. It's simply a reverse engineered masterpiece. I chopped up scenes from that ridiculous movie Interstellar. You know that it's pretty clear that their God is gravity.
It's gravity.
Gravity is their answer for everything that they can explain. It's their answer for everything they can't explain that doesn't make sense on a spinning ball Earth. It's their answer for everything. How does the Earth orbit the sun? It's the sun's gravity. Why do we stick to the ball Earth? The Earth's gravity. Why doesn't the water fly off a ball that's spinning 1,000 miles an hour? Gravity. Why does the moon orbit the Earth? Gravity. What causes the tides? The moon's gravity. The moon's gravity overtakes the Earth's gravity. None of this shit makes sense. Gravity is their god. Look at the Freemason logo. The compass and square with the G in the middle. What do you think that G stands for? I've heard a lot of different theories, but the G is their god, and the G is gravity, because gravity is their god. And the globe is clearly the image of the beast. The image of the beast. The image of the beast that all will worship. Just like it says in Revelation. You've never seen that globe from that perspective, from that far away, ever in your life. Yet when I say Earth, you picture a ball. And the Freemasons, they flaunt the globe in a lot of their little illustrations and logos and symbolism. The globe plays a large part, as do the planets. The make-believe planets that they named after the Roman gods. They've got you worshiping the same old gods. Mars and Mercury. And the biggest planet is Jupiter. And the one that they always show with the ring around it, like a crown, is Saturn. And then Neptune, which in Greek mythology was Poseidon. They've got you worshiping the Roman gods. Gravity. How many times did they say the word gravity in that stupid movie Interstellar? That movie was pure mind control programming. All Hollywood movies are mind control programming that push the globe model. All the movies about space and all the other movies, they all in some way push that globe model. The globe, the image of the beast. They tell us that the Earth orbits the sun. They put the sun at the center. Heliocentrism has nothing to do with science. The idea that the sun is the center was thought up by occultists, Jesuit priests, the Vatican. It has nothing to do with science. And they say that the Earth orbits the sun going 66,600 miles an hour. Now, I use this number because on this Earth that we live on, the number one source of information is Google. And if you Google how fast does the Earth orbit the sun, they tell you 18.5 miles per second. Hold on, I'll be taking a hit. Now, Google tells us 18.5 miles per second, but we're not trained to think in miles per second. Why would they tell us miles per second? So if you want to convert miles per second to miles per hour, you need to multiply by 60, because there are 60 seconds in a minute. And then you got to multiply by 60 again, because there are 60 minutes in an hour. And that will convert your miles per second to miles per hour. And when you do that math, it's 66,600 miles per hour. What a coincidence. They call gravity the G-force, the force, the magical force. It's these people's magical force, just like Star Wars, like the Force. It's gravity. Gravity is their god. In the movie Interstellar, Matthew McConaughey says that gravity transcends the dimensions and time and space. Sounds an awful lot like God and not gravity. I don't know if you've seen some of my past videos, but I explain what gravity is, and I will do it again right now. First of all, the only reason why they needed to think up this idea of gravity and relativity is to make sense of all the shit that doesn't make any sense on a spinning ball Earth. Like, how are we sticking to it if we're on the side of it? Or how come we're not flying off of it because of the centrifugal force? Or how come the water sticks to the outside of a ball? We all know that water takes the shape of its container and is always flat. So how does it stick to the outside of a ball? Oh, gravity. How come we can't feel the spin? Oh, well, everything is spinning together, including the air in the atmosphere. Everything's spinning together. That's relativity, so we can't feel it. But on the flat Earth, gravity is density. Okay? There is no magical force sucking us to the Earth. I'm a human. I'm solid. I'm solid matter, and I'm denser than the air. So I fall through the air, and I stick to the ground until I hit another piece of matter. Solid matter. In liquid, I could sink or I could float, depending on my density and the density of the water. When you're in the Dead Sea, it's so salty and it's so dense that the water is denser than your body, and you don't sink. In the Dead Sea, you float. I've been there. I've done it. I know. Hot air is less dense than cold air, so hot air rises. Ice cubes are less dense than water, so ice cubes float on water. It's called buoyancy. That's how hot air balloons rise, because hot air is less dense than cold air. That's why helium rises, because helium is less dense than oxygen in the air. So helium rises. Where's the gravity with that? There is no gravity. It's just density and the laws of matter. Air is matter. Air is matter. The ether is matter, right? One of the states of matter is gas. If you ever filled up a balloon, you know that it takes up space. Two pieces of matter can't occupy the same piece of space at the same time. If I fall through the air, I'm going to continue to fall until I hit another piece of solid matter that I can't go through because I can't occupy the same space at the same time. That leads me to another thought. The fourth dimension is not time. Dimensions are spatial. Time is not the fourth dimension. That makes no sense. Time exists in all dimensions. In that movie Interstellar, they try to make you think that time is the fourth dimension and that time is relative. And it can stretch and it can squeeze. That's ridiculous. Time is time is time. A minute is a minute. Doesn't matter where you are. It takes you 1 second or 2 seconds to inhale and exhale. That's the same amount of time it'll take you to inhale and exhale everywhere. Time is not relative the way they want you to think it is. That's some crazy thinking by Einstein, who admitted he couldn't even prove it was real. When he died, he was so unsure of himself, he hoped it was real, but it was all his imagination. He had an incredible imagination, an infinite curiosity. Curiosity is important. If you're not curious about things, you won't seek out knowledge and you won't discover the truth. And you need to seek knowledge in order to find the truth, because the truth will lead you to where you need to go. And the truth, no matter where you begin, always leads to the same place. And it's not gravity, it's God, and it's Jesus. That's why following the truth is so important. Some people are willingly blind to the truth. They don't want to know the truth. It's too scary for them. Ignorance is bliss for these people, but that's not acceptable. You can't achieve bliss by way of ignorance. It's just not an acceptable way of living. But there is a mass awakening happening all around the world, and it's starting to happen in this country. I've been waking up people left and right, and it's been getting easier. People are doing it on their own now, and then coming back to me and telling me what they've discovered, and it's amazing watching it. That's why I do this. I do enjoy watching people wake up. It's the greatest gift I can give people, is their brain back, their ability to think. If I could give that back to a person, that's all I want out of this YouTube channel. Real quick, I want to address the idea of the ice wall. And when we say the ice wall, what we mean by that. A lot of the people who are skeptical are saying, if there's this great ice wall, how come there's no pictures of it? Well, there are hundreds, if not thousands, of pictures of the ice wall. So I think there are some misconceptions about what we mean when we say the ice wall. All we mean, when I say we, I mean myself and other flat earthers when we use the term ice wall, which is the wrong term to use. All we mean is the coast of Antarctica. And there are pictures of the coast of Antarctica and the Antarctic shelf all over the internet. This is the ice wall that we're referring to. Okay, so I think a lot of people think when we say ice wall, they're thinking about the wall on the exterior, like where I put this red circle. They're thinking about the absolute limit, like the wall of like a dome. Like if we were under the dome, they think when we say ice wall, that the ice wall is the dome or the wall that Truman reaches. They think we're talking about like an igloo wall. That's not what we mean. We're not talking about the exterior part of Antarctica. We're talking about the coast. Just the ice that surrounds the water, the container of the earth. The ice wall, it varies in height. It gets as high as about 2 miles at some places. I think it averages maybe a half mile high. This is the container that holds the world's oceans in. Water always levels out and always takes the shape of its container. This model has level water and a container, which is the Antarctic continent that surrounds us. It's not on the bottom of the ball. It's actually the ice that surrounds us and holds the oceans in. That's scientific. Level water container. The globe has curved water sticking to the outside of a ball with absolutely no container. So that's not scientific. The only way they say the water sticks to the outside of this ball is through their magical, invisible force known as gravity. Okay? So we're not talking about the exterior. We don't know what's at the exterior. There's probably nothing. There's no wall. There's no glass dome. You're not going to find anything. If this model is true, the further you go towards the exterior of Antarctica, the further you go away from the center, the further you're going to be away from the sun, which means it's going to start getting extremely cold and extremely dark. And eventually you're going to go so far that you reach absolute zero temperatures and absolute darkness. It's a natural barrier. Okay? God is a lot smarter than we are. He doesn't need to build a physical wall. He can use natural conditions to contain us. Absolute zero temperatures and absolute darkness. And snow and storms and wind all around you. What are you going to do when you get all the way out there? There's going to be nowhere to go. You're not going to be able to do anything. There's nothing there. It's nothingness. The earth was void and without form. Nothingness. Okay, so there's no wall. I'm sick of people like Zachary K. Hubbard consistently asking for pictures of the wall. All we're referring to is the coast of Antarctica, which surrounds us and holds the oceans in. We're not talking about an igloo wall that has humanity trapped. If you look at the logo for the Scientific Committee on Antarctic Research, SCAR, you see how they have the Antarctic continent in blue with white surrounding the blue. So if you look at the negative space, this almost looks like an ice wall surrounding a pond of ocean. So they kind of hide these things right in plain sight, right in front of our faces, okay? Why would Antarctica be blue and the background be white? It should be the background blue and Antarctica white, because Antarctica is a sheet of ice, right? So they definitely hide the truth right in front of our face. Stop asking me about the ice wall. Stop asking me to show you pictures of the ice wall.
When I say the name Jesus Christ, an image pops into your head. You can't even help it. And it doesn't even matter if you believe that Jesus actually looked like this or not. When I say the name Jesus Christ, this is the image that is going to pop into your head. It's an image that has been shown to you repeatedly throughout your entire life. Just repeating the same image over and over and over again. That's called brainwashing. You have never actually seen a photograph of Jesus Christ. And no one on earth actually knows what he looks like. But when I say the name Jesus Christ, that's the image that pops into your head. An image based on artistic interpretations. And when I say the word earth, another image pops into your head. An uncontrollable image. When I say earth, you see a ball. You can't even help it. You have been shown the image of the globe over and over and over again, to the point where I can't even say the word earth without you seeing an image of the globe. But that's all it is. It's an image. Just like the images of Jesus Christ. You have never seen a genuine photo of the earth from space. All they have are CGI, composites, and artistic renderings. And what the image of Jesus Christ and the image of the globe have in common is that they both come from the same evil and corrupt institution. You know, in the years and centuries following the crucifixion of Christ, Christianity was actually illegal in many places. And the original true followers of Christ were hunted down and persecuted. But the message was too strong to overcome. So in the year 313, Constantine converted the Roman Empire to what he said was Christianity. In order to control their opposition, they became their opposition. They hijacked the idea of Christ and perverted it beyond recognition with pagan ideology. And they turned Christianity into a pagan sun-worshipping religion. It was the Vatican who has been behind this heliocentric model of the solar system and the idea of the spinning globe Earth. They were behind it from the very beginning. They placed the sun at the center. But are they really worshiping the sun? Or is the sun just symbolic for Lucifer, the bearer of light? Are these images that they tell us are Jesus, are these really images of Jesus? Or are these images of Lucifer masquerading as Christ? Wouldn't that be the most diabolical plot of all time? To infiltrate your greatest opposition and deceive them into worshiping you. They have purposely brainwashed you into thinking that this is what Jesus looks like. So if I were you, if I ever see someone pushing an image of a false Jesus, Lucifer, holding a false globe Earth, I would be very, very skeptical of what comes next.
Share with you this article that's on nasa.gov. It's about Robert Simon, aka Mr. Blue Marble. It's from about 3 years ago, and it's a little interview. They ask him a bunch of questions, and I found some of his answers rather interesting. So let's take a look. What do you do, and what is most interesting about your role here at Goddard? How do you help support Goddard's mission? His answer was, my role is to make imagery from Earth sciences data. Okay, he makes images. He does not take photographs. I turn data into pictures. I look for new interesting events that NASA satellites have seen or that are hidden in the latest data to find anything interesting that shows off NASA's unique capabilities. Yeah, unique capabilities as in creating CGI Earth planets. It's not unique at all. This man is a piece of shit because this man is being used as part of the deception, and he probably doesn't even know that he's being used like a tool. Okay? He probably has no idea that the Earth is flat and that he is part of the grand deception. What is the coolest thing you've ever done as part of your job at Goddard? His answer is unbelievable. It's actually quite believable, but it's just remarkable. The last time anyone took a photograph from above low Earth orbit that showed an entire hemisphere, one side of the globe, was in 1972 during Apollo 17. NASA's Earth Observing System, EOS satellites, were designed to give a checkup of Earth's health. By 2002, we finally had enough data to make a snapshot of the entire Earth, so we did. The hard part was creating a flat map of the Earth's surface with 4 months of satellite data. Okay, so this guy is admitting that there has only been one photograph taken of the entire Earth, one side of the globe, so that you see a perfect circle, since 1972. This guy made the Blue Marble, I believe, in 2004. 32 years went by, and they had only taken one photograph of Earth, and it was during Apollo 17, and we can prove how they faked these shots. The Apollo 17 shot is just a photograph taken of the Earth, cropped into a circle through a round window. Okay, it's not a genuine photo. This guy is admitting that they have 0 genuine photographs of the Earth. The hard part was creating a flat map of the Earth's surface. Then we wrapped the flat map around a ball. My part was integrating the surface, clouds, and oceans to match people's expectations of how Earth looks from space. This guy is admitting that they created a flat map and then wrapped it around a ball. This is precisely what I've been saying that they did. The globe model, the heliocentric model, is reverse engineered from the truth. And his job was to make sure that it matched people's expectations of how Earth looks from space. You know what that means? It means it doesn't matter if it's realistic. It doesn't matter if it shows a perfect sphere or that it's not a pear-shaped oblate spheroid. This wasn't about truth. This wasn't about reality. This was about matching people's brainwashed expectations of how Earth looks from space. That ball became the famous blue marble. The blue marble image that you see all the time is CGI. That is not a photograph. NASA does not try to claim it's a real photograph, but NASA has absolutely no problem with you believing it's a real photograph. And that's the biggest problem. 32 years went by and they claim to only have one real photograph of the Earth from space. We're going to talk about perspective and horizons, and I'm going to try to explain to the best of my ability why we see things like the sunset and why we see the bottoms of buildings being obscured by the horizon. So the first thing I would want to ask is, if we live on a flat plane, would there even be a horizon? And the answer to this question is absolutely yes. Of course there would be a horizon. So many of the so-called debunkers of the flat earth theory, including the guy in that video, The Top 10 Ways We Know the Earth is Round, they say that on a flat plane there would be no horizon and that you would be able to see infinitely.
The simple fact is, if the Earth were flat, there wouldn't be a horizon beyond which things could disappear. So from across Lake Michigan, you'd be able to see all of Chicago, as well as the Rocky Mountains.
But this is silly nonsense. A simple Google search should be able to clear this up beyond a shadow of a doubt. So for all you non-believers out there who say there would not be a horizon on a flat plane, let's go to this website called askamathematician.com and see what they have to say. Question: if the Earth was flat, would there be a horizon? If so, what would it look like? If the Earth was flat and had infinite area, would that change the answer? Answered by a physicist. There'd definitely still be a horizon if the Earth were flat. Let's repeat that. There'd definitely still be a horizon if the Earth were flat. It would be in almost exactly the same place and look essentially identical. While the Earth isn't flat, adherents to that theory are correct in that it's nearly so. And if you're standing on the surface of a round something the size of the Earth, it's difficult to tell the difference. In fact, mathematically, you can make the argument that a flat Earth acts the same as an infinitely big Earth. So basically what they're saying is the horizon on an infinite flat plane would work the exact same way as it does on a ball with the radius of 3,959 miles. You wouldn't be able to tell the difference. It works the exact same way. So let's begin by looking at this perspective diagram. As you can see, all these horizontal parallel lines all converge at the vanishing point on the horizon as they get further away from the observer. So the lines that are below us appear to go up in the frame as they get further away, and the lines that are above us appear to go down in the frame as they get further away. This is similar to what it would look like if you were looking down a long hallway. When you look at this picture of a hallway, we know that both the walls are parallel with one another. And we know that the floor and the ceiling are also parallel with each other. But our eyes do not see them that way. Our eyes converge them all at the horizon. So this is a first-person perspective. Okay, you are the observer in this picture. But let's take a look at what this would look like from a side angle. All the horizontal lines that are visually parallel, they all visually intersect at the horizon. Okay? So it forms a right triangle here, with the horizontal line being at eye level, and the hypotenuse is the ground. It appears to go up to the vanishing point, to the horizon, which is right here. So we know that all these horizontal lines converge at the horizon, and they will radiate out of the horizon. All these radiating lines are actually parallel, but our eyes don't see them that way. So a lot of these flat earth debunkers, they make side view illustrations that show these horizontal lines parallel, like this, when they should be making their illustrations like this. The higher up the horizontal parallel line, the steeper the angle at which it converges at the horizon. Okay? So notice how we have a red solid line as the ground. You can't see through the ground. The ground is a true limit. So these radiating lines here, they stop at the ground. But in an upwards direction, all these horizontal parallel lines radiating out of the horizon, they continue to go. There's no limit in an upward direction. That's why I've continued these lines. So the higher up the parallel horizontal line, the steeper it converges at the horizon, at the vanishing point. Now also, a lot of flat earth debunkers, they try to say the sun would never set on a flat earth, and they create side view illustrations like this. And they say, look, this is the angle at which the observer would see the sun, and at no point will the sun ever fall below the ground. And they say the same things for objects on the ground that are moving further away. They say the boat will never vanish beyond the horizon. But this type of side view illustration is completely wrong. You need to converge your ceiling with your floor at eye level. So it wouldn't look like this. These horizontal lines wouldn't look like this, and you wouldn't be viewing the sun and the objects on the ground like this. What actually happens is it all converges at the horizon. So this is a much more accurate and factual side view illustration. And when Cash is looking at the sun, this is the angle in which he looks at the sun. And when he's looking at objects get further away from the ground, this is the angle in which he would look to see those objects on the ground. Okay, so most flat earth debunkers get this completely wrong. Now we know all the horizontal lines converge at the horizon, including the ground. Now I've continued the ground in this illustration so that I can make a point. Because if these lines are all converging after the horizon, let's pretend like they diverge, right? Theoretically. So I've continued the ground. Now if there was a boat sailing away from Cash, when it's closer, he's going to be looking slightly down to see it. And as it gets further away, he needs to look a little further up, and a little further up, and then a little further up. When the boat gets the same distance away from the observer as the distance to the horizon is, Cash will be looking 0 degrees, completely horizontal and parallel with the ground. He'll be looking straight ahead. Now, what if the boat gets a further distance away from the observer than the distance to the horizon? What if the boat got to here? Well, now Cash would have to look in an upwards direction to see something that we know is below him. It's not possible. It doesn't work. Now, you can only see the face of the ground up until your horizon. You can't see the face of the ground past the horizon. Okay? Cash can't see the ground from here to here, but he can see things that are above the ground for a little bit past the horizon. That's another function. The higher an object is above the ground, the further you can see it past the horizon, but you can't see the ground past the horizon. So if the boat was a little bit past the horizon, but had about 10, 20 feet of height on these sails, this is what Cash would see. Now if the boat got even further away, Cash would have to look at an even greater upwards angle to see something that is below him. And at this point, that ship's not even possible to see. This is what Cash would see. Nothing. It's past the horizon. The horizon is a set distance away. Now the same thing happens with the sun. Let's pretend like this top parallel horizontal line is the path of the sun. Cash is going to be looking this way, then he's going to look a little further down, and then a little further down. Now when the sun is at the horizon right here, this is what Cash is going to see. And if the sun gets even further past the horizon, see how he has to look down to see something that we know is up? And he's being forced to look through this solid red line, which represents the ground, which is not transparent. Cash can't see through the ground. It doesn't work. This is what Cash would see. The sun will have set. This is what Cash sees as the sun sets. Now, many people say the sun should diminish in size and vanish into a tiny dot as it gets further away. But that is not how perspective works, okay? Because we know horizontal parallel lines converge at the horizon. For them to be correct, Cash's eyes would have to be at the same altitude as the sun. If this were the case, then yes, Cash would probably see the sun diminish in size into a tiny little dot until it disappeared. But obviously, we are well below the sun, so we see it go in a downward direction. Now this video is a time lapse of the sun setting from an airplane. Being in the airplane at over 30,000 feet, this pushes our horizon back extremely far, allowing us to see a greater distance. From this altitude, it becomes more apparent that the sun does diminish in size as it gets further away until it hits the horizon, at which point it completely vanishes. This is exactly what we should expect to see. There's no reason we should expect to see the sun continue to diminish in size until it vanishes into a tiny dot. That is not how perspective works. So why do we see the bottoms of the buildings obscured by the horizon in this picture? Well, it's the same reason why we see boats vanish, and it's the same reason why we see a sunset. We know that the distance to the horizon is an actual set distance. So let's say the distance to this horizon is 3.1 miles. Now let's also say the distance to this island with the city skyline is also exactly 3.1 miles away. Well, if this were the case, because we could see the face of the ground all the way to the horizon, we'll be able to see the beginning of the shoreline of this island. But if the horizon is 3.1 miles away, what if the island was 4 miles away? Well, what's going to happen is it's going to appear to be a little smaller, but it's also going to start bottoming out because you can only see the face of the ground up until your horizon. You can't see the ground past your horizon. So now let's say the island was 4.5 miles away. What would happen? Well, it would continue to look smaller, but it would also bottom out. And as the island was further away from you, it would bottom out until all you could see are the tops of the buildings, and eventually you won't be able to see anything. Now, if you were to zoom in on a horizon, you're not going to be able to see the ground any further past your horizon. All you're going to do is magnify the things that you could already see to make them appear bigger and clearer. So I'll repeat, zooming in with a camera or zooming in with binoculars or a telescope does not allow you to see further in a horizontal parallel direction with the ground. All you'll be doing is zooming in on your already existing horizon, making things bigger and making things clearer. It does not allow you to see further. Now, this kind of obstruction would happen on a ball and a flat plane, but there would be one big difference. On a ball, the further away the observer was, the more these buildings would appear to be leaning over, because your local location on Earth is always on top of the ball. You always feel upright. So if the observer was, say, 50 miles away from these buildings, the buildings are going to have a slight tilt to them. They're not going to appear vertical and parallel. That's the big difference between perspective on a ball and perspective on a plane. We never see these buildings tilting over. We never see a boat tilt over. We just see them bottom out, but they remain completely vertical. The only other real difference between perspective on a ball and perspective on a plane is that on a ball, the higher up you go, the further down you would have to look to see your horizon. The horizon would fall, or it would appear to fall, as you went up. On an infinite flat plane, however, the horizon is always going to remain at your eye level. And in reality, we know that the horizon always remains at eye level. So reality matches up with the perspective optics of a flat plane, and it does not match up with the perspective optics of a round ball. So as you can see, these objects in the distance aren't leaned over, they're not slanted, they're just obscured by the horizon because they're a further distance away than the horizon is, so they appear to bottom out. They're not leaning over. Okay, so as we zoom out, guess what? We have the same horizon. Zooming in didn't allow us to see further. All it did was magnify things and make them clearer to see. Things we could technically see with our human eye if our eyes were good enough to see that far. Learning perspective really is the most important thing to realize you live on a flat plane. So many of my commenters and so many of my globe Earth defenders They don't understand perspective. They all think they do, but they don't. They understand size perspective, that objects appear to get smaller as they get further away, but they don't understand horizons at all. So many of my commenters actually say that there would not be a horizon on a flat plane. Once you say that, the argument is over. They don't teach you perspective in schools. The only people that learn perspective are artists and like architects. They don't teach this to the common person. Why do you think that is? They don't want you to understand how your senses work. They want to keep you as dumbed down and as uninformed as humanly possible. This makes it easier to control you. They want you to deny your own senses, deny all common sense, and then put your faith in them. Trust them. Trust the experts. They know better. They're smarter than you. You're dumb. They're smart. Trust them. The Matrix relies on this type of thinking. They don't want people to be able to critically think for themselves.
The biggest thing is how the sun works. The sun is the key to this whole theory. Okay? The sun spirals in a circle above the flat earth. When the northern hemisphere is in summer, say on the summer solstice, the sun would be making a circle around the Tropic of Cancer. Then as the days get shorter and the sun starts setting further and further into the south, which on a flat earth map is the outer rings, it's because the sun starts to spiral outwards. When we reach the fall equinox, and I'm talking about the northern hemisphere, obviously, because I live in New Jersey, the sun will be spiraling over the equator. Equinox, equator. This is why it's always hotter near the equator, because they're in the middle of where the sun goes to. So they're in the average. They're right in the middle. So they always have the best sunlight, the best angle and the best rays of sunlight. Now when we start heading into winter, by the time we reach the winter solstice, the sun will be spiraling around the Tropic of Capricorn. And then it will, when the days start getting longer, it will start spiraling inwards. Now picture, not a physical dome, but picture a firmament sky dome, if you will. Like in a planetarium, when you look up at the sky, the ceiling is a dome. So picture everything is dome shaped. Not that there's a physical dome, like a Truman Show, like what Mark Sargent is shilling, but picture just a sky in the shape of a dome, essentially. And the stars are in that sky firmament, and they rotate around us. And the sun is somewhere in that firmament dome shape as well. And when the sun is spiraling over the Tropic of Cancer, when we're at the summer solstice, it's at its highest point, because the center, the middle of the dome, is higher. And as it goes outwards, it also goes downwards. It's an up and in, down and out. In fall, the sun falls. And in spring, it springs back up. Make sense? Thank you. The sun goes clockwise. The clock face makes sense on a flat earth. You ever see a yin-yang? A yin-yang is the sun and the moon circling the flat earth. Like the tortoise and the hare. The sun, as it goes outwards and the spirals become bigger, the sun speeds up. That's how it maintains a 24-hour day. So the sun is always changing its speed, going faster and slower throughout the year. But the moon stays steady. It remains at a constant rate, and twice a year, the moon will overtake the sun. It's called the eclipse. Those are our stars. That's our moon. That's our sun. The Bible says that God made the sun and the stars and the moon for the signs, seasons, days, and years. It says that those are what creates those things. Where science says it's the movements of the earth
that creates the days and the years. The Bible says the earth is stationary, it does not move. But science tells you that it's the earth's movements that create all these things. It's always the opposite. If God made the moon for the signs, seasons, and days and years, well then the moon was made for the months. The months. That's why we have the moon. The lunar cycle keeps track of the months. So what did the Vatican do? They took us off a calendar that has the months linked to the moon. They will do anything to remove God from society, and they will do anything to do the opposite of what's true. Always. I mean, I feel like I'm repeating myself because I've said this in other videos, but this is how they do it. They tell you that you evolved from nothing, when the truth is you devolved from God. That is the exact opposite. They always do that. And our whole lives, we get brainwashed by the globe. Everything is reinforcement of the globe model. All the movies, the shows, schooling. Oh, it's disgusting. All the shills, all the controlled opposition shills out there use a globe in some way or another. Alex Jones, Prison Planet, David Icke, Mark Dice. It's a common theme. It's a red flag. Like if someone doesn't speak out against Israel or someone's a Zionist supporter, that's the biggest red flag that says they're not a legitimate truther, right? Well, the second one is if they use that image of the globe. And I know that's ironic I say that as I'm getting high, because my new little profile picture is the image of the globe, but it's the image of the globe in a cage. Okay? Because that's really what the globe is. They put you in a cage that has no bars. If you think that if you keep going one direction, you'll just end up back in the same place and that there's a finite amount of land and it's all been discovered, you won't go and try to discover more land. It's a trap. It's a very effective way of keeping the herd contained. Because that's all you are. You're goyim. You're cattle. The globe. Let me ask you a few questions about the globe. Let's just say you start drilling. Let's just say the center is not hot and you could theoretically drill all the way through. Through the center, right? You'll be drilling down. When you start your little venture, you'll be going down. But when you come out the other end of the ball, you would have to be coming up out of the ground. So when does down become up? Logically, at the exact center of the ball. Down flips to up, right? The gravity point has to originate at the exact center point of this ball for this whole theory to work. So let's just say you do. You drill all the way down to the core. What's going to happen to you down there? Are you automatically, you're just going to like have a flip of consciousness? It makes no sense to me. Let me ask you another question about compasses. Make no sense on a globe Earth. They make perfect sense on a flat Earth. But let's just say compasses did work on a globe, right? And it made sense on a globe. Let's say you were standing at the exact South Pole. Which way is north? Which way is north if you're standing at the exact South Pole? It's not a difficult question. The logical answer is every direction is north if you're standing at the exact South Pole. Every direction, it would be equal in distance to get you back to the North Pole. So what would a compass do? How would a compass behave if it was located at the exact magnetic South Pole? I would think it would just spin out of control. And the magnetic energy, whatever, would keep that thing spinning because every direction is north. But here's the thing, all the people that are allowed to go to Antarctica on those little bullshit trips, they're not allowed to go to the actual South Pole. And they have a little pole down there, but they admit that it's not even located at the exact magnetic South Pole. And then they say that the pole actually moves around. Magnetic south and magnetic north move. So you can never actually find it exactly, which is, really convenient. Because then you'll never be able to figure out what a compass does at the exact South Pole. That question can never be answered. And there are periods of the year where the North Pole experiences 24 hours of darkness. When we're in winter. That's because the sun is so far, it's out by the Tropic of Capricorn, that the light never reaches the North Pole for the entire 24-hour day. And there are periods of the year where the North Pole has 24-hour daylight. And that's pretty much because the sun's circling along the Tropic of Cancer. And it's right above you. It's right above the North Pole. But these periods of 24-hour darkness or 24-hour daylight, they don't exist at the South Pole. To me, this makes sense on a flat Earth. Makes no sense on a ball Earth. Here's my flight path that I took when I traveled to Israel. And my next video I'm going to make is going to be me talking about my trip to Israel. We're going to get into some details. I'm going to tell you about that. I'm probably the first YouTuber in history to sign up for one of those free birthright trips to Israel, pretending to be a Jew. I went undercover as a Jew, infiltrated their group, spent 10 days with them abroad in Israel, and I made secret audio recordings using my iPhone of their propaganda sessions. And I made about 3 or 4 videos already exposing them. But my next video is going to be about that. But anyway, here's my flight path I took from Newark to Israel, to Tel Aviv. And if you look at it on a flat Earth map, it's a straight fucking line. Because the shortest distance between 2 points is a straight line. Someone shared a NASA video on my Facebook wall. It had all these amazing shots from space, right? Well, they had a few real photographs. All the real photographs were much closer. The landscapes were all flat. And any time they showed a curve or the whole ball, those were completely fake and CGI. Some of them admittedly. So they don't have any real shots of the ball. All they have, some fisheye lenses, some CGI, some bullshit. They don't have any footage of the ball Earth spinning. You don't find that weird? So I made this, and this is my conceptualization. It's a clock that has 24 hours. And it's got the flat Earth map on it. Now what you do is, you align your longitude with 12 noon. Okay? So I live here in New Jersey, which I calculated to be, about right here. So I've got my longitude in New Jersey set to this 12 noon. Because when the sun is at 12 noon, the sun should be directly south of you. And if the sun is on this longitude, the sun would be directly south of me. So when this sun gets all the way to here, it's noon. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 o'clock in the afternoon. 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, midnight. So this clock not only can tell you the time, but it can also show you the position of the sun in the sky. Like I said, as long as you rotate the flat Earth map to make it so your longitude is at 12 noon, and if you hang this up facing the right direction, this could not only be a clock, but it's pretty much a sundial. This will tell you where the sun is over the flat Earth. Very interesting stuff. At the equinox, it'll be over the equator. In June, it'll be over the Tropic of Cancer, and in December, it'll be over the Tropic of Capricorn. So it'd be really neat if I could actually make a real-life working clock that has the sun going around the flat earth once per day, 365 days a year, with the sun actually going in and out from Tropic of Cancer to Tropic of Capricorn. And I would make this clock homemade, and perhaps I would even bring it to school and show my teacher. Hopefully, I don't get mistaken as a terrorist and get blown up all over the Zionist-owned media. Just kidding. Obviously, that would never happen. They would never want you to know about this clock, because this is the real clock. This is the genuine clock of the earth. The earth is a clock. The sun is the hour hand going around a 24-hour clock. Any of you can make this at home if you're smart enough. I'm not smart enough to make my own clock. I'm not a med. I could probably take a bunch of working clock parts out of an existing clock and put it in a cardboard box and pretend I made my own clock. But I'm not a med, and I'm not a propagandist, and I'm not full of shit. Revelation 12:9. And the great dragon was cast out, that old serpent called the devil and Satan, which deceiveth the whole world. He was cast out into the earth, and his angels were cast out with him. It was Satan who deceiveth the whole world, and it's Satan who is the father of all lies. And he tells us many lies, but all his lies follow a similar pattern. Satan is consistently telling us the exact opposite of the truth. And he tells you lie after lie after lie. But his number one lie is to trick you in many different ways into believing that there is no God. But take a look around you. There absolutely is a God. Secondly, Satan will try to trick you into believing there is no Satan. And this trick can be almost as destructive as his first trick. These first two lies take away all accountability for your actions and lead you right into a life of sin and doing what thou wilt. If the first two tricks don't work, Satan will try to trick believers into blaming God for his own evil doings. Satan tells us that one day nothing exploded and turned into everything, and the universe was randomly formed through a big bang. When the Bible tells us that God created the earth with absolute precision and purpose, Satan tells you that the sun was created before the earth. The Bible tells you that the sun was created after the earth. Satan tells you that the earth spins, orbits, tilts, and wobbles. The Bible says that the earth is firmly established and stationary and cannot be moved. Satan tells you that the earth revolves around the sun. The Bible tells us that the sun revolves around the earth. Satan tells you that you evolved from nothing, when the truth is, you devolved from God. Evolution requires a massive amount of death before man. The Bible says that man came before death. The synagogue of Satan believed that the new day begins at night, when the Torah states that the new day begins at day. The synagogue of Satan believed that the new year begins in the fall, when everything is dying. When the truth is, the new year begins in the spring, when everything is being reborn. Satan tells you that the earth is the same as all the other so-called planets in the sky. He tells you, as above, so below. When the truth is that the earth is the only physical plane of existence, and that nothing on earth is like what's in heaven. Satan tells you to do what thou wilt. The Bible tells you to submit to God. want to talk a little bit about astrology, and I want to share with you this little project I've been working on for the past few days. I've created a computer animation that shows the rotations of the sun, moon, and stars over the course of an entire year. So as you can see in this animation, we have the 12 constellations of the zodiac spinning around, and each spin of the zodiac wheel represents one stellar day, which takes roughly 23 hours and 56 minutes. Okay, so a sidereal day, or a stellar day, is roughly 4 minutes faster than a solar day. And this causes the stars to gain 1 degree every 24 hours. So in a 24-hour period, the stars rotate 361 degrees. It gains 1 degree a day on the sun. Now on top of the zodiac wheel, I've also placed the sun and the moon. The sun takes a true 24 hours to complete one circle, one full day. And the moon is a little bit slower than both. The moon takes 24 hours and 50 minutes to complete one full circle. So we have the sun losing roughly 1 degree a day on the stars, and we have the moon losing roughly 12 degrees a day on the sun. And these slight variations of the solar, stellar, and lunar days is what gives us the phases of the moon, and it's what makes astrology possible. If the sun, moon, and stars all rotated around in a true 24-hour day, there would be no astrology because there would be no change in the relative positions of these luminaries. You have to realize that there is a reason why astrology ends in ology and astronomy does not. Okay, astrology is the real science. They want you to think that astronomy is the real science and that astrology is a make-believe pseudoscience, but the truth is the exact opposite. Okay, it was J.P. Morgan who was once quoted saying, "Millionaires don't use astrology, billionaires do." And that's because the elite who practice the occult and who are in possession of this sacred knowledge, they know very well that astrology is a real thing. The sun, the moon, and the stars are lights in the sky that give off energy, frequency, and vibration. And these energies and frequencies have an effect on human beings and our emotions. So the positions of the luminaries relative to each other at the very moment of your birth create like a time stamp that sticks with you for the rest of your life. Now, most of you are probably already familiar with your sun sign. Your sun sign is based off where the sun was positioned within the zodiac wheel at the time of your birth. And because the sun loses 1 degree a day on the stars, after 30 days, the sun will lose 30 degrees, which causes it to fall back into a new sign. So the first sign is Aries, which begins on March 21st, the vernal equinox. And the first sign begins on March 21st because the real first day of the new year is actually March 21st. The new year should begin in the spring. That's just common sense. It would only make sense that the new year would begin in the spring, the time of new growth and new life. The Julian and the Gregorian calendar start the new year on January 1st, and we know this is wrong. And the Hebrew calendar starts the new year exactly 6 months later, in September. The exact opposite. This is completely wrong. They do this because Satan and the people of the synagogue of Satan, they do everything in opposites to spite God. This is Satan's sense of humor. So the synagogue of Satan will say that the new year begins in the fall, when everything is dying. And they also say that the new day begins at sundown, at nighttime. Okay, did you hear me? They actually believe that the new day begins at night. Now, all we have to do is use the Torah, use Genesis, to prove that this is the exact opposite of the truth. In Genesis, it says that God called the light day and the darkness night, and that God separated the day from the night with evening and morning. Now in Genesis, at the end of every day of creation, it says, and the evening and the morning were the first day, or were the second day, and so on. Every day of creation ends with that phrase, and the evening and the morning. So let me just clarify that the word day has two meanings. It can mean a full day, as in a 24-hour solar day, or it can mean the time of light, or daytime. So every day, a 24-hour day in Genesis, ends with the phrase, the evening and the morning. So the day ends after morning, or the day begins at daytime. Does that make sense to you? The order goes day, evening, night, morning. Day, evening, night, morning. That's the order. The day begins at day. That's common sense, and it lines up with Scripture. Doesn't that make more sense to you? That the day should begin at day and the day shouldn't begin at night? They do things the complete opposite. Just like it makes sense that the new year should begin in spring, the time of new growth, okay? But the synagogue of Satan does everything in opposites. So they claim that the new day begins at night after evening, and they claim that the new year begins in fall when everything is dying. So I guess the point I'm trying to make after that huge segue is that the first sign, Aries, begins on March 21st because March 21st is the actual first day of the new year, the vernal equinox. So 3 months later, the stars will have gained 90 degrees on the sun, and now the sun will be in the sign of Cancer. And this is also the time of the year when the sun is circling over the Tropic of Cancer, which I didn't depict in this model because I don't have the capabilities, but during the summer solstice, during that 30-day period, the sun is circling over the Tropic of Cancer. And during the winter solstice, during the sign of Capricorn, the sun is circling over the Tropic of Capricorn. So that's not a coincidence. The two tropics represent the lines of latitude the sun spirals between. The sun is never any further north than the Tropic of Cancer, and the sun is never any further south than the Tropic of Capricorn. Okay? That is the only reason why the tropics are even a thing. It's the only reason why they were created. Now, this is true on the globe model or the flat model. The sun will never be directly overhead any further north than the Tropic of Cancer, and it will never be directly overhead any further south than the Tropic of Capricorn. This is true on the globe model or the flat model. So most people are familiar with their sun signs, but they're not too familiar with their moon signs. The moon sign represents where the moon was in relation to the stars at the time of your birth. So because the moon loses 13 degrees a day on the stars, the moon will fall through all the signs roughly once a month. So while it takes the sun a full year to fall back through each sign of the zodiac, it only takes the moon 1 month to fall back through each sign of the zodiac. So calculating your moon sign is actually very easy. You can either go to a moon sign calculator on the internet and have them do it for you, or you could try to figure it out yourself, and it's very easy. The first thing you got to do is look up what the phase of the moon was at the time of your birth. Now you could use your sun sign and the phase of the moon to calculate what your moon sign is. So for example, I was born on May 19th of 1989, so that makes my sun sign a Taurus. And I looked up the phase of the moon at the time of my birth, and it was a full moon. It was a 99% full moon. So a full moon occurs when the sun and the moon are 180 degrees opposite of each other. In my case, the sun and the moon were probably like 178 degrees opposite of each other because I was right before the exact full moon. So if the sun was in Taurus at the time of my birth and the moon was 180 degrees opposite Taurus, that would mean that the moon was in Scorpio at the time of my birth. So my moon sign is Scorpio. And that is how you can figure out what your moon sign is. It's very easy to figure out once you learn how the sun, the moon, and the stars all rotate around in perfect harmony. The heavens function with absolute precision, making all this possible. This is absolute proof of creation. And that's the main thing I'm trying to teach people at this point in time. That we were created, that everything was created, and God is perfect, so everything He created is perfect. This model is the work of God. It's perfect. See, I'm only human. My computer program is not that advanced. It only had 2 decimal places. So I had to do some rounding for this model. God is absolutely perfect. He can be exact to the infinite decimal place. He doesn't need to round. He's the ultimate mathematician. Now, God created the heavens, so learning how the heavens work and having an understanding of it is perfectly acceptable. But practicing astrology to tell fortunes and predict the future, that's a forbidden practice. And I don't practice astrology, and I really don't know anything about it besides that this is how it works. And I discovered all this after I discovered flat Earth. Flat Earth is proof of God, and it all lines up with the Bible, so you got to start reading your Bibles. I know many of you don't like to hear that, but it is the truth. There is not one truth out there that doesn't line up with the Bible. So read your Bibles, trust your senses, trust your gut, ask God for the answers, and all will be revealed to you. Today I want to talk about the luminaries, the sun, the moon, and the stars, and how they rotate around in the firmament above us. I've gone over the sun in the past, so you might know a little bit about this subject. The sun goes around in a circle, And it takes 24 hours for the sun to circle the flat Earth in one day. And the sun's circles get bigger and smaller depending on the time of the year. In June, the sun is circling over the Tropic of Cancer, so it's got a much tighter circle. In December, the sun is circling over the Tropic of Capricorn, so it's got a much bigger circle. And at the equinoxes, the sun is circling over the equator. Okay, equinox, equator. Now the moon also circles above the flat Earth, but the moon is slightly slower than the sun. The moon takes 24 hours and 50 minutes to circle the flat Earth. That's what's called a lunar day. It's slightly slower than the sun. So where the sun takes 24 hours to make one 360-degree circle, which is 15 degrees an hour, the moon takes 24 hours and 50 minutes to make one 360-degree circle, which equates to only 14.5 degrees per hour. So the moon, because it's slightly slower, it loses a half a degree on the sun per hour. So this half a degree per hour equals 12 degrees per day. So as the sun and the moon circle above in the firmament, the moon loses 12 degrees per day on the sun. And this 12-degree loss causes the lunar phases. So as you see here in this little animation, we've got the sun and the moon circling above, 1 hour at a time. And by the time the sun gets back to its original position at 12 noon, after one full day has gone by, the moon has lost 12 degrees on the sun. And this happens every day. And this loss of 12 degrees per day is what's going to cause the phases of the moon. So if you were to look up at the sky on day 1 at midnight in New Jersey, the moon would be here. And if you were to look up at the sky at the exact same time on day 2, the moon would be here. It's lost 12 degrees. It's 12 degrees further to the east. And if you were to look up at the sky at midnight on day 3, the moon would be 12 degrees further, and 12 degrees further, and so on and so forth. The moon loses 12 degrees per day, and this causes the phases of the moon. And I did my best to try to animate this for you so you could see it and understand it better. Now the stars are slightly different. There's something known as a sidereal day, which is slightly shorter than a solar day. A solar day is a true 24 hours. A sidereal day, or a stellar day, is what's slightly shorter by 4 minutes. A stellar day is only 23 hours and 56 minutes. So because it's 4 minutes faster than a regular day, this 4 minutes equates to 1 degree. So the stars all rotate around Polaris every single day, but because they're slightly faster than the sun, it gains 1 degree per day, and this causes the stars to shift 1 degree per day roughly, or roughly 7 degrees per week. So if you were to look up at the sky at the same time every day, they're going to be slightly different because they're shifting 1 degree every day. So here I've made a little animation of the Big Dipper and Polaris. I'm not going to include all the rest of the stars in this because, I'm not a computer whiz, but I can do the Big Dipper and Polaris. And every day it circles around Polaris. Polaris never moves. The North Star never moves. I know in my little animation it's bouncing around just a little bit here, but it's supposed to be constant. It never moves. It's a guide. So 1 rotation equals 1 stellar day. Now because it gains 1 degree per day, if you were to look up at the sky at week 1, you're going to see this. And week 2, if you were to look up at the sky at the same time, it's going to be shifted 7 degrees. And week 3, it's going to be shifted another 7 degrees roughly, and week 4, and week 5. And throughout the year, the constellations will constantly shift because they shift 1 degree a day roughly. And we have 365 days a year. So it's slightly less than 1 degree, but you get the point. This is how the constellations shift throughout the year. And this shift causes the constellations to be in a different spot throughout the year. And when this happens, you get fall, winter, spring, and summer. The 4 seasons. This symbol is an ancient symbol. You might know it as the swastika, but what it really means is the 4 seasons, because if you were to look at the Big Dipper throughout the year, this is what it's going to look like. Constantly pointing to the North Star, which never moves. So you got your spring, summer, fall, and winter. Unbelievable stuff. And it never stops. It just rotates around. People are having a hard time conceptualizing how east and west and north and south work on the flat earth. So if you take a look at the flat earth map, it's kind of like a bullseye with the North Pole, magnetic north, in the exact center. So if north is the exact center, which way is south? South is opposite north, just like on a globe. So if north is the center, then south is the outer rings. Now let's just say you were in Newark, New Jersey, where I am. North is going to be facing the center. South is going to be opposite you. West will be to your left, and east will be to your right. But what you have to realize is all directionals, even on the globe Earth, are derived off of where north is. That's how compasses work. Okay? So, on the flat Earth, west is really you traveling clockwise in a circle with an even radius going around magnetic north. That would be west. West is clockwise. It's the way the sun goes. East would be counterclockwise with an even radius around magnetic north. That is how people claim to have circumnavigated the globe from east to west. They're not going around a ball. They're going in a circle around a flat plane. That is also why no one has ever circumnavigated the globe going north to south. It's impossible. You can't do it. Once you reach north, once you reach the center, you keep going. Now you're going south again. You're never going to come back underneath the ball because it's not a ball. If you could do it, it would have been done. But it hasn't, because you can't. There are a lot of trolls out there trying to debunk flat earth, and they come up with all sorts of false proofs, false debunkings. Some guy said to me, so you're telling me on a flat earth, you can go in any direction and reach Antarctica? No, numbnuts. The only reason why you think you can go in any direction to reach Antarctica is because you're not capable, your peanut-sized brain is not capable of conceptualizing north, south, east, and west on the flat earth map. You can only go south to reach Antarctica, just like on a globe. No matter where you are on the globe, if you go south, you'll reach Antarctica. And on the flat earth map, no matter where you are, if you go opposite north, which is opposite the center, then you're technically going south and you'll reach Antarctica. You cannot go east or west to reach Antarctica. East and west are just circles, clockwise and counterclockwise. And if you go north, you'll reach the center. And if you keep going, you'll be going south. So no matter which way you go, you're going south to reach Antarctica. And I'm sorry if you're not smart enough or clever enough to figure out how north, south, and east and west work on the flat earth map. So enough of this globe nonsense. I'm sick of it. The earth is not a ball. Water doesn't curve. Water doesn't stick to the outside of a ball. The horizon is not curved. The horizon is flat. No matter how high up you go, the horizon will rise up to your eye level and remain flat. The earth is flat. And I'm positive people are waking up to this fact. You can see it. You can see it by the number of videos on YouTube and the number of posts on Facebook. People are waking up. It's possible that, maybe 2 or 3 short years from now,
You know, the mainstream comes out and confesses the earth is flat. That's possible. When the so-called new world order or the new paradigm begins, it could be a flat earth paradigm, believe it or not. And they're going to make you think that you're enclosed and you're trapped. Or you really are going to be enclosed and trapped. There could be other geothermal earth ponds, like Matt Boylan believes. And if they decide to leave this polluted, chemtrailed, poison earth and go to the other geothermal earth, they're going to lock us in. They're going to lock us in with androids. Just like in Matrix Revolutions.
I just want to tell you this story real quick. I was just on Facebook, and one of my Facebook friends, who I don't really know him that well in real life, but this guy, he shared this article that said, over 10,000 new photos of the Apollo missions released by NASA to put an end to all conspiracy theories once and for all. And I couldn't help myself, so I commented on this guy's link, and I said, listen, dude, NASA lies. NASA is the government lies, and we never went to the moon, and these photos are fake. This is all just a giant hoax, and they're lying to you, and they're manipulating us through their propaganda. And the second I said this, and I wasn't insulting, I wasn't condescending, but the second I told him that we never went to the moon and that NASA lies, this guy immediately turned on me, and so did a bunch of his friends. They instantly started calling me stupid, tinfoil hat wearer, retard, conspiracy theorist, you name it. They called me all the names that they're pre-programmed to call me, okay? And all I was doing was trying to help them. All I was trying to do was show them truth. Because even though ignorance is bliss, knowledge is power, okay? And the truth will set you free. There is a reason why these people lie to us, okay? They hold the knowledge, and knowledge is power. Okay, he who holds the knowledge holds the power. There's no reason for them to tell you the truth about anything because they want to keep the power for themselves. So my intentions were good. I was trying to help these people, and they all turn on me, and they tell me to kill myself. They tell me to literally go buy a gun or a rope and kill myself, and they also told me to not breed. They said that someone should cut my balls off and that I shouldn't breed because they don't want to have stupid kids in the world. And multiple people, not just one person, but multiple people, just for telling them the truth, just for telling them that NASA lies, they advocated that I kill myself and that I should never breed. Okay? This is how bad the mind control has gotten. They didn't address one thing I said about NASA. Instead, the first thing they did was attack me and try to attack my intelligence. Okay? Everything they did was right out of the script. It was pre-programmed. They had no original thoughts for themselves. Instead of listening to any kind of truth, instead of thinking for themselves, instead of opening their eyes, instead they choose to fight me. They choose to fight me and fight me and fight me, and they'll fight me all night long. They'd rather fight me. They'd rather live in ignorance. They'd rather live a blissful, ignorant life than see the truth for themselves. And that's why I'm talking over the fight scene from They Live, because this fight scene is symbolic of how hard it is to get someone to see, to get someone to open their eyes. This fight scene is symbolic. It represents how much they will fight you. There's a reason why this scene was so drawn out. This is one of the longest, most drawn out fight scenes of all time, and they didn't do that for no reason. This is symbolic. This is symbolic for how hard people will fight you, how hard they will resist seeing truth. Roddy Piper, all he's trying to do is get the black guy to put the sunglasses on so that he could see that all the people are actually these robot aliens and nothing is as they seem. And this black guy, instead of just putting on the glasses and seeing for himself, a very easy task to do, he chooses to fight Roddy Piper, for 5 minutes. Okay, so They Live does a great job explaining how hard it is to get someone to open their eyes. The Bible says that people will have eyes but won't be able to see. The Bible says that the wisdom of the world is foolishness with God, that everything you think is correct is actually the exact opposite of the truth. Satan continuously lies to us, and he continuously tells us the opposite of the truth. When you tell people the truth, when you tell people the scary truth, they have the worst reaction ever. You may call it cognitive dissonance. People just reject the truth when they don't want to see it. And they'll fight you, and they'll fight you, and they'll fight you. And all you were trying to do is get them to do something as simple as put on a damn pair of sunglasses. That way they could see the world around them for what it really is. So they could finally realize that even though ignorance is bliss, it is not an acceptable way of living. Stop resisting the truth, stop fighting everyone that tries to tell you the truth, and just put the damn sunglasses on and see reality for what it really is. You'll be better off and you'll be a lot happier. And once you unplug yourself from this matrix, even if you could go back, you wouldn't even want to. Explained how I think the sun would work on a flat earth. And I could pretty much answer any questions or any doubts anyone would have. It all makes sense. And pretty much what I said was that the earth, the sun is doing a spiral. That's what creates the seasons, longer days, day and night. It's not a circle. We're not orbiting in a circle. The sun is doing a spiral. And I believe I said, why would we circle if everything in life is a spiral? And I pointed out the golden ratio and the golden spiral, the Fibonacci sequence. It's pretty much the basis of my idea. Then I come across this video just now on Facebook. And I got really excited because it says the old heliocentric model of our solar system, planets rotating around the sun. And then they show this great graphic, this great digital imaging. And they said it's not only boring, but also incorrect. And I was like, yes! And then I saw that. They're not saying the Earth was flat, and that's why the heliocentric model was wrong. They're saying it's wrong because our sun and our entire solar system is also moving through space at 70,000 kilometers an hour. So the Earth is spinning 1,000 miles an hour. We're orbiting the sun, and the sun is moving through space at 70,000 kilometers an hour. And Polaris never moves. And images like these have been created all over the world. Let's watch this video. Now picture this instead. This isn't science, this is science fiction. It's much less boring than reality. Look at us go, spiraling throughout the universe. The sun is like a comet, and it drags the planets in its wake. Vortex? Can you say bullshit? I find the timing of me coming across this video really strange. Really strange. And the timing of Mark Sargent's videos and Eric Dubé's videos, and the timing of net neutrality being pushed, even though they've been planning that a while, you know, they went ahead and they pushed that agenda right at the perfect time. Urgency. They had a sense of urgency behind that. And I was already pissed off after watching this video, but what really pissed me off was this part, when they ask us why this is important. Because rotational motion and vortex motion are two completely different things. Life spirals. Yeah, life spirals. It doesn't circle. Life's a vortex. Not just a rotation. I wonder where the fuck I heard that before, maybe 2 days ago. Oh. You see what they're doing with this bullshit? Life is a spiral. But the Earth is flat. And it's the sun that's making the ultimate golden spiral. Use your brains. Forget what you've been taught. When they teach us these things, they try to make it seem really complicated, really complex. And then you start doubting yourself when it doesn't make sense, but you accept it anyway. You accept something that doesn't make any fucking sense to you. Let me ask you a few questions. How does water, the oceans, stay on the outside of a ball? Dip a baseball or a golf ball in water. What happens to the water? It drips off. They'll say it's gravity. It doesn't drip off the earth because gravity is holding it to the earth, they say. But what is gravity? Is gravity real? What causes us to stick to the ground? Well, what it really is pretty simple. It's density. Why does ice float on water? Because ice is less dense than water. Why does hot air rise? Because hot air is less dense than cold air. Why does helium rise? Because helium is less dense than oxygen. Why does an apple fall from its tree? Why do solid matter fall? Because solids are denser than air. That's what gravity is. Yet they'll tell you gravity is what keeps the water on the ball that's spinning 1,000 miles an hour, orbiting the sun, and flying through space at 70,000 kilometers doing a vortex. Yeah, you can't feel it. You can go outside when there's absolutely no breeze whatsoever. But you're doing all those different rotations and you can't feel it because of an invisible force that they call gravity that you can't feel and that they can't prove in an equation. Gravity is their answer for everything. Everything. If you ask me, science is a religion and gravity is their God, because when they can't explain something, gravity. Gravity. How about God? Makes a lot more sense. I could prove God. Look at that golden spiral you're talking about in your own video. There's your proof of God. The globe is an illusion. If you're the people who are controlling the world and you discover that the world is actually flat and that there is a God, and you're the only people with this information, are you just going to share it with everybody? Or are you going to use it to control everybody? And if you want to be God yourself and you want to remove the real God from society on a flat earth with a firmament, then what do? You tell everybody that they're on a globe flying around infinite space. Space so big that our little existence on Earth is completely meaningless. They want you to think that you are nothing, that the Earth is just a cosmic accident, that all this was created by the Big Bang, which was nothing exploding into everything. So science tells you that we came from nothing. Yet religion tells you that we came from God. What came first? Religion says that God made man. Science says that man invented God. Science and evolution require massive amounts of death to create human life, to get to the point of evolution to human life. Science says death brought on man, whereas creation says that man brought on death. Science is the exact opposite of creation, of the truth. And what came first? Who's holding the grudge?